Thank you for tuning in to this Fast Chat on Runtime Governance. My name is Daphne Singer. Today I'm speaking with Rampart-AI's CEO, Lee Krause. We're diving into the critical role of runtime governance in securing agentic AI.
Happy to be here, Daphne, and look forward to this chat.
Thank you so much for your time. Let's jump right in. What exactly is runtime governance in the context of agentic AI?
So when you talk about runtime governance for agentic AI, I think there are kind of a couple things that just jump right out at me. One is governance really is looking at the standpoint of controlling from an enterprise standpoint how agentic systems are used, determining their goals and objectives, tools that they can work with, foundation models they work with, data that they work with. It's kind of the higher level control of the system or that agentic system itself. And runtime governance is ensuring that it does what's expected. So when you think of it, it's broken down into a couple areas: the identity of the system, guardrails of the system that protect the foundation model, being able to do jailbreak, prompt injection, things of that nature, controlling the interface to other tools, ensure the tools are called appropriately, controlling the decision-making associated with it, transparency, being able to understand how decisions are made and why, and being logged. And finally, the kind of when to stop, or when you've gone too far, you're outside of your safe zone, when to ask humans for approval, things of that nature. Really break down the area that governance has a role and is a key role and is important.
So why is runtime governance fundamentally different from traditional approaches like EDR or MCP?
The main difference here is things like EDR are looking at the endpoints of what's happening on your system, whereas runtime governance is looking at the agentic system itself and how it's operating. So it's a level of granularity, understanding what the system itself is doing, as opposed to what just the results are. From an MCP standpoint, MCP is really the set of tools that it's and data and foundation models it's allowed to access. It's basically giving you a way to simply call them efficiently, right? What runtime governance is doing is ensuring that you're using the right one at the right time and ensuring that you're not being, I'll say, pushed off course, drifted off course along the way. So it's basically, again, how you're using the MCP interface is being monitored by runtime governance. And that's really the fundamental difference. And why is it important? I think that in general, agentic systems are different foundationally from the standpoint of traditional systems pretty much do what they're told to do in the sequence that they're told to do it. In agentic systems, you're giving them flexibility to make decisions themselves and do things that you may not have seen before. So because it's doing things that you may have not seen before, it's important to understand what is the safe zone of freedom you're going to allow it to operate in. And that's really the fundamental difference. How do you monitor and maintain the safe zone to allow it to have free reign in making decisions?
So to kind of continue on that thought process, what kind of agentic behaviors are companies trying to govern, and why aren't static policies enough?
It goes back to that point where static policies work when you know everything that's going to happen. It's easy to come up with static policies. It's when things are going to change that static policies fall short. So what agentic systems are doing, what runtime governance is doing, it is moving it up to a higher level and understanding the goals and objectives of the system and any additional constraints that you put on the system, which could be static rules that are all being pulled together to determine, are you inside the safe zone or outside of the safe zone each time the system is operating. And so it comes down to that freedom to operate is what's so critical and why runtime governance is so important and is different than anything else that's currently being supported at the enterprise level and beyond.
So let's talk a little bit about trust and control. So how do you balance these two attributes when AI agents are making decisions on the fly?
It's going to really fall back to this whole concept of what's inside and outside of the safe zone. What are the goals and objectives of your system? And really, you're making decisions based on how closely it aligns to the goals and objectives of the system. If it directly applies to the goals and objectives of the system, it's easy to determine it's inside and it's safe. It's when it starts to push out and do things that are pushing the line is where there's a need for the system either to ask humans to approve the actions that it's taking, to it may have a way that it can actually run the action and prove to itself that it's safe and doing what's expected. And so that's really that line of walking the line of, am I inside or outside of my safe zone? And as I push out of the safe zone, what are the actions I need to take, whether it's asking for human intervention, whether it's doing internally, having an internal another agent that's monitoring it to ensure that the end result is safe. Those are things that can be built into the system based on how you develop your agentic systems.
Perfect. Do you have anything else to add about runtime governance?
I think it's really important that people realize how critical it is for AI and agentic systems to think of it from a standpoint of runtime governance, because it's a different world out there, because you're taking in information from the outside world that you perceive to be trustworthy, and you need to be able to prove that it's trustworthy at runtime. And that's the fundamental difference that's happening within the AI community and the agentic community, is that ability to take in information or prompts, whether it's coming from data, large language models, right, or even MCP tools, and ensuring that they make sense for the goals and objectives of what you're trying to do.
Lee, thank you so much for your time. For more information about Rampart-AI's runtime governance solution that keeps autonomous systems resilient and trustworthy, head to rampart-ai.com. Until next time, stay secure.